Our next presenter is Belinda Heit. You've heard her speak as our advocate this morning, but she's also presenting on social media. She works for RACQ. She's backed by popular demand, and I'll hand over to her. Thanks.
Okay. All right, for those of you who don't know who RACQ are, we're the Royal Automobile Club of Queensland, and that's right, those big yellow trucks are what we're all about, saving on the roadside. Today, I'm going to cover a bunch of stuff around social media planning. We recently embarked in social media at the beginning of this year. So I'm going to look at strategy, objectives, delivery, engagement, governance and structure, integration, planning, and some lessons we learned along the way. And you might want to just look out for the cartoons. I hope everybody likes Dilbert. Okay, so the prospect of embracing social media for an organisation like RACQ was a pretty big step and a decision that was not made lightly. It took at least a year's worth of work collectively to get enough groundswell for it to be taken as a serious two-way communication channel that we could no longer ignore. Of course, we were formed back in 1905, that's 106 years ago for those of you playing at home, with just 12 members. And today, it's Queensland's peak motoring organisation, representing the interests of almost 1.2 million members. At RACQ, we take pride in a trusted and respected brand and being there for the members and the community when they need us the most. We believe we need to remain relevant to our members in more ways than one. And by 2030, RACQ will be a truly multi-dimensional modern mutual, that's a mouthful, offering Queenslanders at least two primary reasons for joining beyond roadside assistance. Now, as part of this strategic direction, which we like to call Roadmap 2030, we must deepen the value proposition of RACQ membership in a meaningful, relevant and compelling way, and to continue to deserve the trust, respect, confidence of our members and the wider community. So we kind of realised that our participation in social media was really something we couldn't afford not to do. So through social media, we could offer a personalised two-way communication that made the member feel valued and heard no matter what they had to say. And we could also direct members back to our website where there's a vast array of information and also supported our social media efforts. Now, some of the guys were talking about, floods, fires, all kinds of stuff. We've had our fun in Queensland too. And as you know, we had the floods earlier this year. We didn't launch into social media till after the floods, which was quite strategic. But during that time, we received heavy website and phone traffic from social networks. Due to roads being impassable, motorists, they came to us to see if they could get home on their holidays. So the Queensland Police sent them to us. We tried to help them as much as we could. And in hindsight, social media would have been invaluable during this time to give updates to the community and also answer questions. And it's becoming evident in times like this where there's floods, cyclones, earthquakes, and even tsunamis that people turn to social networks to keep up to date with people right there on the ground. So, objectives. That's a great place to start. Now, we started with a large work group of people. I think it was about 40 people we started with across the business, with key stakeholders, and we workshopped what we wanted to get out of social media. And from this, we then formed a steering committee, which was a little bit smaller, and our goal was to reach 4 key objectives, and those are summarised there. So we wanted to increase engagement by building effective relationships through social media channels. We wanted to demonstrate that we were a modern brand enabling a two-way communication, and to add value to membership by educating about advocacy issues, community initiatives, products and programs, and use social media as a resource for research and feedback, which is pretty free most of the time. And everything comes back to these objectives. So, Objectives sound great, but how do we deliver? If you've been involved in social media and followed some of the greats, you might have heard this one before: listen, participate, and leverage. Now, this is pretty much our mantra on how we do things, but we've sort of spiced it up a bit. So we have, it's like 3 steps if you want to think of it that way. Listen and learn. The first part of our strategy is listening to and learning how members and potential members influence each other and consume information. And this allows us to tailor messages to achieve maximum effect. And of course, there's a bit of trial and error in that. You're not always right and you're not always wrong. So that is a permanent thing that we do. We 24/7 listen and learn. A second step is to participate and engage. So once we understand their needs, we're better placed to engage and add value. Distribution of content across a range of social media platforms allows access and engagement, thereby increasing value proposition of membership. And how we deliver in social media is still tied back to those overall objectives, otherwise it's pretty pointless. And lastly, leverage and innovate. Once we've built our community and we've been listening and beginning to participate, we can then know that we've got some trust and respect from our engaged community. And this is where we can carefully integrate messages around products and services in line with our advocacy messaging without doing the hard sell. And we've just sort of gone into that leverage and innovate stage in the last few months, and it's going very, very well. Okay, so we really should have some structure around the way we communicate. You would think that RACQ was government, but we're not, but we like structure. There were some really key things that we had to be careful of in our introduction to social media at RACQ. An overarching structure was needed to be sure that we covered all bases to give us a way to govern what we were trying to do. So from a governance perspective, we needed to ensure that we mitigate risk above all else, because we heard too many of the high-profile Twitter fails, and of course we didn't want to be another statistic. Additionally, we needed to have one brand voice and reputation that was managed and consistent, and we needed to enforce our strategy inside the technical constraints that we had. The organisational infrastructure that sat behind that allowed us to participate by updating our code of conduct so that our staff knew the boundaries when it came to commenting in a public space and what was and wasn't acceptable. Infrastructure also included resources, so human resources, time, technical, these all had to be assigned. Internal training and education on social media still continues and will continue to do so on some level in such a diverse organisation. The infrastructure would not be complete without our rules of engagement. Now, we put these together so that we had a set of guidelines for engagement. So when we had to respond or not respond, we had a set of rules that we could follow every time. And they relate to what we call a proactive or a reactive engagement. So proactive being a message we're putting out, reactive being a message we're receiving. So, of course, part of this equation needs the social networks themselves. So at the moment, we're participating in Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And we have future plans to expand beyond these networks. We're starting out small and working our way out, as Steve was saying. And above all this, none of it would operate without our centralised engagement model that we've adopted that takes care of monitoring the social media distribution of content to the social networks, ensuring adherence to the engagement rules and models, and monthly and ad hoc social monitoring and reporting. And our centralised team consists of just 2 people. There's myself, and also our manager of communications for social media. And of course, over time, as we grow, so will our team. Okay, so risk mitigation. The 3 main risks that appeared evident to us while we were forming our social media strategy were firstly the risk to brand and reputation, and if it wasn't managed properly, like infringement of copyright or fake identities and stuff like that. Secondly, risk caused by inappropriate or incorrect staff engagement was something else we wanted to avoid. Unauthorised staff are not permitted to comment publicly on behalf of RACQ, as the risk of incorrect information or breach of security are far too high to manage in a distributed engagement model. Another risk, and it is a risk but a very small one, is, and it's kind of out of our control, is the availability of social networks. And so far, any outages on Facebook or Twitter are very small, but they're well publicised. You know, when they go down, the whole world falls over. Overall, our solution to this was the first two risks were our central engagement model, and that social engagement must only be performed by authorised staff in line with brand guidelines. Okay, so how do we know which social networks to focus on? It's vital to listen and learn first before we set up any live Facebook or Twitter accounts for the company. Make sure you monitor and analyse your target audience and where they commune, and over a period of time you'll find that majority of your mentions will occur in more in one particular network than another. So for us it's Facebook. And this will help you give an indication of where you should be participating. With so many social networks, it's important to concentrate your energies on where you'll get the most value for your business rather than spreading it right out. Biggest bang for your buck. And by that I mean find a social network that meets your needs and has enough groundswell to contribute to your success. So for example, Facebook, it gives you more options to communicate, connect, share with others, and it's changing every day. It's changed since the last time I did this presentation. More importantly, plan for your future. With the speed of change in social networks and what they offer your business, you need to keep ahead of the wave. One simple suggestion is follow Facebook on Facebook. That's right, follow Facebook. And follow Twitter on Twitter. They give updates on what's happening. And also, webinars and key industry experts also have great information. Additionally, don't expect to conquer all social networks at once. Take it steady and begin small and build your way up by spreading out into other networks that complement your existing ones. So our overall solution here was a staged approach with a planned social media map, and again, not forgetting those objectives. So holistic integration is a must. You need to have integration with your websites, your e-newsletters, your email signatures, all your branding, just everywhere. Be consistent in the way that you do it, and people will just expect that. You can integrate and cross-promote your social networks within each other where technically possible as well. So, you can have a Twitter tab and a YouTube tab in Facebook, and, you can link back and forth in between the two. And of course, it would be remiss of me to not mention mobile applications, and I think it was Steve earlier this morning mentioned by 2013, mobile applications are going to be the way of the future. And also test new technologies, be innovative and keep up with the constant change. You need to do something different and get people's attention. So our solution here, social media must be considered as another important communication channel for an organisation and treated with relevant priorities. And somebody else said this as well, I think it was Steve, the other Steve, or Darren it was. It's not a fad anymore, it's not to be ignored, it's not going away. So there's lots of planning. So when do we start to see some money and some benefits out of this? Never rush into a social media strategy, no matter how much you think you need it. The landscape changes every day. Make sure you know what you want to achieve for the company first, and it should not just be about X amount of followers. Develop the community first, have a conversation, don't market them away. I mean, would you like it if your friends did that to you? I always think that social media is a lot like dating. And while the two are different, there's some similarities. We just want people to like us, we just want people to talk to us, and we just want to have a relationship. Same goes for social media. So our solution here was to have a soft introduction into social media called the test participation phase, and then we moved on to the full participation phase to begin to put in those products and services. Okay, so what have we learned so far? It's been about nearly 9 months for us now. First and foremost, social media monitoring is critical, 24/7. This will alert you to what people are saying about you, whether it's good or bad, or whether it's not, whether it's in your space or not. You can just listen to passing mentions. Ensure you find a tool that works well for you. Be consistent in every decision you make and be able to justify your actions. This is one of the reasons we have rules of engagement, so we can make a decision and follow that every time. Use tools that allow you to measure engagement and traffic in and out of your website and social networks. Facebook has a lot of insights for pages built in, and you'll see when using shortened URLs for Twitter, you can make a URL shortener that gives you click-through. So try the Google URL shortener. You'll find you'll get your click-through tracking there. Vanity URLs on Facebook. There's a 5-character minimum for those. So when we wanted RACQ, guess what? We couldn't do it. So we went for RACQ official. And of course, you've got to have 25 followers before you can get that vanity URL. And you can go to facebook.com/username for one of those. Now, there's 2 different types of tweets. One that you want retweeted and another one that you want people to click through. People rarely do both. They usually do one or the other. You also need to keep records of engagement if you need to go back if there's some kind of issue and investigate, and also for record keeping purposes. Mix up your posts, tweets with different media, so use videos, images, links, and just don't be predictable. Mix it up. Include links back to your websites where possible and direct traffic back to relevant content. Don't give them dead ends. I think it was Tanya that mentioned that earlier. No dead ends, please. And that's pretty much it. But if you would like to follow us, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Belinda, for sharing your insights into your organisation. We've got Andrew Dunbar on.